sharing some of my childhood stories of the severely haunted house I grew up in. I really don't know where to really start, so I decided the beginning is always good, lol. My childhood home was built over the old homestead of my great-grandparents, and we eventually added onto the home with a L-shaped addition, and that's when things started. Our two dogs refused to go into the addition, which happened to be mine and my two siblings' BDRMS. They would bite you, hair would stand up on their backs if you even tried to carry them back there. A black figure, red eyes would be seen repeatedly. My older brother put an arrow through the wall trying to shoot the figure. Our CD players were thrown away BC of the deep voice that would talk to you through it at night by name. My brother would wake me and tell me half asleep the red-eye thing wouldn't let him sleep, so he slept in my floor. My entire childhood my dad would sleep on the couch until everyone was home BC. He swears something would sit down on the bed and then lay down beside him. The dryer would turn on repeatedly even if you unplugged it. Cooking in the kitchen, you would get bruises on the top of your feet like S/O was stepping on them. This is just a generic run through of some of our experiences in the home. If anyone would like more in-depth posts, just let me know. Sorry I'm shit at telling our story, but we'll try to do better. Not gonna lie, just thinking some of the experiences makes me realize exactly how crazy it was to actually live it, even though it seemed normal to us back then. A former friend's ghost. I used to work at a big box retail store, so I've had a few work friends that worked there. One day my mother and I went to the store and saw one of my work friends seeming confused and out of sorts, so we stopped to talk to her. One of the questions was what was going on with an RV that was outside. She seemed to know things that she previously had no knowledge of. We didn't think anything of it besides people giving us weird looks as they passed by. Well, at one point in our conversation, her daughter Jenny came walking into Walmart looking upset and crying. When we saw her, we asked what happened, of which her mom said she had to go and walked off very quickly. Well, her daughter walked into the back room, so we sat and waited for her to come out to ask if she was okay. Jenny ended up telling us that she was coming in to talk with her mom's employer to tell them that her mom passed away earlier that day from an aneurysm. We asked if it was some type of joke because we were just talking to her before she had to go because Jenny walked into the store, of which Jenny told us we weren't talking to her mom, we were talking to a shelf. Well, it was safe to say my mother and I went home confused and kept an eye on the obituary part of the newspaper, and we intact did see that my friend did pass away. Sorry about spelling and grammar errors. Experience on the USS Below Wood LHA 3, 2002. I am very much a skeptic. I did not and still really don't believe in ghosts, but at the same time I did experience this. I was a Marine and deployed with the 11th MEU on the Below Wood. At one point I ended up getting assigned to work with the Navy Ship Supply, S8, I think it was. I worked for them for a month during the day with nothing unusual happening. At the end of the month I volunteered to work for them for another month if I could work the one-night shift spot. They agreed, and since no other Marines wanted to get fapped out to work for the Navy, I got the spot. Basically that meant that anytime any section, engineering and aviation mainly, needed a part at night, I went to get it from one of the many storage rooms throughout the ship. There came to be 3 storage rooms I preferred not going to. C, CA, and CB. They were by far the biggest storage rooms and in the bowels of the ship, which are supposed to be completely sealed from the rest of the ship other than the one path you take to get to them to prevent flooding in the event of a hull breach. Yet in what was perhaps the most isolated part of the ship I would hear voices and other indications of movement in other close-by areas of those storage rooms. The first few times I would call out asking who was there, never receiving a reply, or investigate the noises which sounded like someone else doing the same job I was, moving things around, either storing, sorting, or retrieving parts, never finding anything out of place. Eventually I just pretended I did not hear anything and got in and out as fast as possible. At the end of my second month, on my last day, I casually, jokingly said something like, "By the way, I am pretty sure C, CA, and CB are haunted." All the Navy personnel in the room just keep looking at me and nodded and verbally agreed that it was. I still am very skeptical of ghosts or any kind of afterlife, but I still can't explain what I experienced. I tend to lean towards Occam's razor. the easiest explanation being, at 0200 I am in the most isolated part of the ship all by myself and my mind was having a bit of fun at my expense. But truthfully I have never been able to just accept that explanation, especially given the reaction I got when I finally brought it up. Perhaps it was bleed over from another below wood in another universe. Whatever it was, the USS below wood is now an artificial reef, so whatever was going on is a problem for the fish now. One of two encounters that have always bothered me. Okay, so basically I was raised very strict Christian and have never really believed in ghosts, but I do believe in demonic entities or something that is definitely evil. Now that I'm older, I'm still on the fence about believing in ghosts, as in things that are spirits of dead people roaming about that have no ill intent. Even with this belief, I still loved a good horror movie, and admitted that a lot of other people's encounters were hard to explain if the paranormal entity in question seemed harmless. Remember this part, it's important to the next story. When I was in high school, I was best friends with a girl who was a little bit weird, and the definition of a pick-me girl, lol. We'll call her Amanda. I would stay at Amanda's house basically every weekend, and after we graduated, I was there pretty much 24/7. Never once did I feel weird in her house. One day, Amanda calls me basically in tears insisting someone has broken into her house, that she hears footsteps and banging, and I told her I'd come over and check it out because I lived literally 2 minutes down the road. I show up, and the doors are all locked. I, being an idiot, jokingly start kicking in doors, yelling out, calling for any serial killers to come out. It made her laugh and feel better, and TBH it kind of made me feel better, too. Weeks pass, we forget about the situation and go on with our lives. Suddenly Amanda is telling me how her dad finally fixed the upstairs bathroom shower where her bedroom is, and that every time she uses that shower she feels like she's being watched and the lights flicker and it creeps her out. I play it off as her just being spooked or trying to creep me out. Then one time her mom is talking to me and tells me she got spooked because the door to that bathroom got stuck and felt like someone was holding it shut. Again, I play it off as something that can be scientifically explained. Their house was split level, and her parents basically had the downstairs, and their kids had the upper level. There were 2 rooms that suddenly started bothering me, and it was the upper living room and laundry room downstairs. Every time I'd go upstairs I'd see a black figure in the corner of my eye, and every time I'd go to the laundry room it was eerily dark even with lights on, and freezing cold even in the middle of summer. It was weird. I just avoided those areas. I had read something about how sound vibrations can cause people to think they see something that's not there, or something along those lines. Point is, it made me feel better, and the laundry room I figured was just because it had concrete flooring. One night, I had come over after work and Amanda went downstairs to take a shower and I laid down on her bed with her door open and my back turned and I got this awful feeling of being watched. And you know how sometimes you can almost hear when someone is sneaking up on you? Well, I had that feeling. I immediately sat up and looked at the doorway, convinced it was her brother screwing with me or the dog had come upstairs, but there was nothing there. I couldn't shake that feeling though. It felt like someone was literally walking in through the doorway and staring holes into me, and at any second something scary was going to happen. I sat there for probably 2 minutes just staring, debating if I should book it, pray, or scream lol. It felt like forever, but I hear Amanda coming out of the bathroom and immediately the feeling fades. I tell Amanda about this, and when she hears it she kinda brushes it off and says that it's her grandpa's ghost and likes to mess with people in the house. I remind her of all the horrible things that had been happening lately and she tells me that her mom had bought sage and was going to sage the house to get rid of it, but had a dream where her dad came to her and said it was him just playing and decided she wouldn't sage it. I'm creeped out at this point, but decide it's too late for me to drive home and just decide to sleep in bed with her. That night I have awful nightmares. Like being chased in the dark, weird voices saying stuff I don't understand, something wanting to kill me type nightmare. I wake up, tell myself I am just freaking out. From that day on, I kept getting them and they'd get worse. It wouldn't be every night, but it was often. One night I was sleeping at my boyfriend's house and had a sleep paralysis type nightmare where something opened his bedroom door and crawled in on the ceiling. Picture alien but with a human head and long talons. I woke up halfway through unable to move and kept trying to call out for my boyfriend, but instead fell back asleep and the dream picked up right where it left off at. I text Amanda's mom, and she reaffirms there is nothing evil in her house, it's her dad and he was just playing pranks on all of them. A few more weeks pass and I stop going to Amanda's house, because 1, demons, and 2, Amanda starts acting shady. She's doing things that I don't like, such as sleeping over at my ex's house, sending me Snapchats of them together, constantly talking of him, and just being a jerk. She also somehow figures out my new boyfriend's Twitch account and is constantly watching him stream, trying to get him to talk to her, asking for his Snapchat, number, Insta, etc. And at that point I lose my shit on her and cut all ties from her. Coincidentally, the nightmares stop. Someone please tell me I wasn't just having some kind of psychotic snap? It was at a bad point in my life, but the fact her family knew about it and thought it was a dead relative makes my skin crawl. My first major paranormal experience in forever. I work at Belk on the dock. Today, I had the standard 7 to 2. I was scheduled alone today and had to do housekeeping before the store opened. I was walking down to the back to go to the dock and grab some cleaning supplies when I heard a few hangers rattle and I turned my head and saw what looked to be a person behind a tree rack, bobbing around like someone was looking for something. I just figured it was a fulfillment or merchandiser working, so I ignored it and grabbed my cleaning supplies and cleaned the men's bathroom. When I went to the women's first, I always get their tampon boxes. I started at the first stall to the right, and right as I grabbed the bag, I heard the back stall toilet flush. I froze for a second and then ran out. I peeked my head back in and yelled hello, with no response. I gathered myself and turned my phone camera on and walked in. Peeked under the stalls with the camera. No feet. No people. I was alone. I walked to the office to talk to my boss when I saw my HR and a fulfillment worker just walking in, and my boss was in the office. There was no one in the store walking around or in the bathroom. Later, after I started having this weird pressure feeling on my head, so I took some meds, but it didn't help. Ended up walking out and smoking a cigarette and chilling for a second, and it went away. I have chills just thinking about this right now. There has to be some truth behind guardian angels if we live in a world where, for the argument, paranormal is real, and it's not just coincidence or perfect timing, then guardian angels HV some truth to them. My personal experience: I'm dealing with depression, and one day I decided I was going to finally end it. I went to leave the house. I started my car, and the second I left the driveway it didn't work anymore. Gas wouldn't work, wheel wouldn't work, etc. With no light indicating a problem with the vehicle. I turned the car off and back on, and I put it back in the driveway and went back in the house. I got my dad, who's a mechanic, to look at my car 20 minutes after this happened. This is a 2021, bought brand new. He goes out, looks at it. Car was fine. Started the car and gave it a test drive. Car started 100% fine with no sound of a problem. I've had zero signs of any car issues since. I'm not religious, but it just got me thinking, if my car really did work, I wouldn't have been here. As I finished writing everyone my goodbye notes before I went to leave. I'm still depressed, and I'm still trying to cope. But needless to say, that really made me evaluate a couple things. Bloody Mary experience: maybe some of you could relate to this. When I was younger, probably around 7th grade, I became curious and skeptical about various so-called paranormal things. One of them being the legend of Bloody Mary. I wasn't too familiar with it besides what my friends had told me, the standard stories involving mirrors and spoken word. I proceeded to do an experiment one day after school when I was home alone. I had an old mirror and drawers in my room, so it seemed like a good opportunity. I then looked in the mirror and casually just said, "Bloody Mary, I have your children." Not 1 second later, A ceramic sun/moon themed thermometer I had hanging on the wall next to the mirror started to shake and rattle wildly. I then quickly took it off the wall and ran outside, shocked and scared. It was the middle of the afternoon, so I just stayed outside and waited for others to come home. Needless to say, I never dabbled with anything of the sort again. And I never hung that thermometer back up either. The wall it was hanging on was a hallway on the other side. So there's no piping or anything that would cause it to shake. Really freaked me out. Whether it's a result of some type of poltergeist activity or collective consciousness. It shook me as a kid and I will never forget it. Has anyone else had similar experiences?